Hey YouTube, how's it going? My name's Straw Hat Izzy, aka The Izzy Cruz if you follow me on Twitch, like the people that are in my Twitch chat right now. And I figured I'd bring you an early look into X Antibody, what I think is probably going to be the best deck of the format. And some of my choices, it's pretty standard for most things, but there are some things you could tech out, some things we could talk about. And I figure I'd just give you an early look into it. So, if you like the content, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, the moonrose button, all of it, all of it. Anyway, let's go ahead and start off with the eggs. So we're playing 4 copies of Doraemon. You only need 4 copies, so you don't need any more eggs. I feel like this is just the best one, and you'll never go into such a grind game where you need a 5th for the majority of the plays. Okay, so moving on from the eggs, we still play 4 copies of Doraemon. We play 4 copies of Ryudomon because all of these cards search. And then we're playing 2 copies of the Dorumon from Bt9. So for those unfamiliar, because these cards aren't out yet and these are proxies, what Dorumon does is you trash a card with X antibody in its type from your hand, and then you draw 2 cards. Seems like a pretty good exchange, right? And it also sets up for future plays. So you can go ahead and probably play 2 copies of this. It's not I'm not like the biggest fan of it, to be honest with you. Like if we had the security one instead, but I don't know if we get that one, I would choose to play that probably. And even then, there are some times where I wish this card was Chumon for like the mirror or for the memory boost cards. So try this out and then see if you like Chumon better. But the X antibody name and the Ricky itself is also a great inclusion, as well as just adding cards. So that's it for the rookies. We only play 10 of them. You'll find the later on you go in these sets, like Bt9, Bt10, if you're playing a tower deck, usually you're going to play a lower count of rookies. You just want to try to get as quickly to the tower as possible, and a plethora of rookies doesn't really do that. It just gives you a good start. From there, we're playing 4 copies of Dex Darugamon, and 4 copies of Darugamon, and 1 copy of Grumblemon. So Grumblemon actually isn't needed at 2 or 3 anymore because of how the way the deck plays, where it usually just OTKs you on its own without needing a hybrid. But the additional hybrid is very good for games where you just need that one little push to go through. But you don't need to play 2 or 3 copies of this card anymore, as previously we used to have to. Darugamon is played at 4 because it is a blocker when it is on the field with a Digimon that has X antibody or a Digimon with X antibody in its traits. And it also gives plus 1000, which is really relevant. But the real reason you play Daruga over cards like Ginryumon is because of Dex Darugamon. So this card is very good. It evolves for 0 over a Darugamon. And then on Digivolve, you can trash a card with X antibody or Dex in its name from your hand and gain a memory. So that's really good. That's whether you evolve over this or whether you just evolve over something in general. And then its other effect is when Digivolving, if you evolve over a Darugamon, target a Digimon on your field, and that Digimon gets Blocker and Retaliation, which makes it so that it can block things, and then your opponent swings into it, and that thing dies if it's bigger. So, very, very good card. It's probably the best Dex card in this deck, and it is really good in combination with the other cards that we have. So, but that's it for champions. Deck space is a little tight, so we're only playing 9, and I think it's a really good number, to be honest with you guys. Like, there's a lot of search power in this deck. From there, we're playing 4 copies of Doraemon. Really good card, gives Sec +1, makes it so that you can't be destroyed or depleted the turn it's Digivolved, which is really important into the yellow matchups and like red matchups where they want to destroy your stuff. And in combination with other cards, you can have stacks where like you just don't lose to anything in security. So really, really strong card, really powerful. You'll see a lot of plays actually go from rookie straight to a level 7 in this deck. So like you can do this and swing and do like a bunch of crazy stuff in the same turn, as opposed to previously where you would like have to do this, go into like a level 6, maybe do some chip damage, and then like you don't win from there. But now it's really good. And then from there we're playing 3 copies of Dex Doru Greymon. So this one's a little weaker than this one in my opinion, but it is still very necessary. Uh, what it does is you can Digivolve over Doragreymon for 1, right? And then when Digivolving, so whether you Digivolve it over Doragray or like any other champion, you can discard a card with Dex or Antibody in its type, and then gain a memory. So if you Digivolve over this, you pay 1, but you gain back 1, so it's a free evolve. Whereas like in combination with Cool Boy, this card is actually a +1. or +2. So there's that. And then on Digivolve, if it has Dorgray in its attribute, or in its sources, or if it evolves from the trash, which you don't do in this deck, but in other decks you can do, it deletes a level 4 or lower Digimon. That's very important for stopping some of these memory blockers. There's a few blockers in the mirror that you don't want to deal with. There's level 4s that you don't want to deal with, level 3s that you don't want to deal with. So it's a really good source of small removal. And that's why I really like it. It's also just a really good card in combination with other things. And it's 8k, so if you have, let's say you Digivolve into this, give this Retaliation blocker, and then Digivolve into this, usually you have something like this kind of stack. This is a 9k blocker with Retaliation, which is super powerful in the format. It means if you swing, you're usually not dying. There are chances that you can, because it's a little bit more of a tower format, but yeah, it's just really strong overall. It does cost 4 to evolve over like a level 4, but like if you're usually evolving over Dorogray anyway, so. And the reason these cards are important is because they add an extra layer onto your tower, and having that extra layer matters for the rest of your combo. From there, we're playing 4 copies of Oriyumon. You must play 4 of this card. Every single list should be playing 4. Wouldn't cut this card down to 3 in any way, shape, or form. So this card was introduced in BT6. I want to say BT8, duh. Uh, and what it does is its inheritable allows a Digimon Alphamon in its name to restand after swinging at the end of the attack, and that's super valuable. There are very few times where you actually evolve into this thing, but having its inheritable under a stack is very, very important. So definitely play 4 of this. You'll need probably all 4. From there, we're playing 2 copies of the new Alphamon. Again, these are proxies, so when it comes out, this card's actually going to be a rare, so it's a super affordable kind of card. What it does is, on Digivolve, you can take a Digimon X antibody and its trait from your trash, which is something that this deck was missing, was being able to add sources from trash, and you put it underneath as a source, right? And then once per turn, during your turn, when you attach a source, you just de-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, which is going to be really strong into decks like Armor Rush that play the Magnamon X, so you can de-Digivolve it so they don't have that Magnamon X anymore. You can de-Digivolve Problem Digimon that you usually couldn't beat over, but now because you de-Digivolved it, you can beat over those cards. And yeah, it's just really potent. There's also a good combination where like you can de-Digivolve a non-problem Digimon, and then go into Oryuken mode to delete the problem Digimon. That way you make the other Digimon have a higher play cost than the one you were getting rid of. Whereas in some situations, the one you didn't de-Digivolve might have had a higher play cost than the opposite one. So very good and very important situations, but its best application is just to be able to put Oriyumon from trash back to the hand. Which is really good, and why you have to play 4 Oriyumon is because all of these cards, the dex cards, go ahead and discard from your hand. So in combination with these, it's just really, really powerful. So that's it for those Alphamons, and then I play 1 copy of the BT6 Alphamon. And this Alphamon's actually really good in this format, in my opinion, because not only is it something that can allow you to gain advantage through swinging, and then like you gain memory and allow yourself to do additional plays, such as plays some of the powerful option cards that we have that are 2-cost option cards. And this gets 2 memory when at the end of the attack, so can be really good there. But its most important part, for in my opinion, is if it's in security and it swings, you target 12 Digimon on the field, and those Digimon just can't attack for the rest of the turn. And that is really, really good, because in the next format, we're going to have a tower format. So it's usually just 1 tower, and being able to stop decks like Grandis from having that second swing after they get through the first 3 is really powerful. So I really think 1 copy of this is like really usable. You could play 3 copies of this card, but I would suggest just playing this as a defensive option. So from there, we're going to talk about the new big bad of the deck. This is 2 copies of Alphamon Oryuken mode, and this card is crazy. I keep going back between 2 and 3 copies of this card. Right now I'm just playing 2 because I wanted to fit something else in, but I could go back to 3 because it's just the bread and butter of the deck. So what it does is, it evolves over an Alphamon within Oriyumon in the stack, which is why this combination is very important, for a 3 cost, as opposed to the regular 7 cost that does cost. When Digivolving, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost, which is why de-digivolving the one Digimon and then like going ahead and deleting the higher play cost Digimon is a very important combo. And then from there, at the end of your turn, once per turn, you get rid of up to 7 cards in your stack, put them to the bottom of your deck. They have to be X antibody cards, and they cannot be the egg. So you can't recycle the egg that way. If anyone tries to do that, they're cheating you. Uh, it has to be 7 non-egg X antibody cards. They go to the bottom of your deck, so they're not even trash. So it's really nice because then you can't like deck yourself out. And there's situations where I'll go like this into this, or if I have 2 of them, or if I have both, and I don't see myself using the second one, where I can just loop this one back into the deck so that I can loop again, so that I don't deck out into longer grindier matchups that you really don't see, but it can be a thing that happens. And then for every single card that you bottom decked, you gain a memory. So let's say you're at 1, right? Let's say you're at 1 because you pass your turn digivolving into this. You're at 2, you digivolve for 3 over an Alphamon with an Oriyamon under it, right? You're at 2, digivolve for 3, go back to 1. Now because it's the end of your turn, you can get rid of up to 7 sources to the bottom of your deck. And let's say we got rid of all 7, you go back to 6. So now your turn just continues and you're at 6 memory. This can be very important because sometimes there are games where you just don't swing right away, and you go into this so that you can make better power plays by evolving and then like doing things afterward. So very powerful card. I would consider 3 of it if you find something else that you want to cut for it, but I think 2 is at least necessary. Don't play 1, play 2 to 3. 4 I think is too much, so that 2 to 3 spot is really strong. And that's it for all the Digimon in the deck. From there, we play some really powerful options. Play 2 copies of Black Memory Boost because this deck is very much reliant on getting to pieces. If you get to pieces, you usually win the game. We've seen this before in BT6 with one of my favorite decks of all time. And Black Memory Boost is really good because it gives you that 2 memory later, and it searches the top 4 cards of your deck. So it allows you to do power plays that are very strong. So Black Memory Boost, really good. Some people play 3, some people play 4. I think 2 is fine because of all the cards I wanted to fit in here. Next, we're playing 2 of the new broken card that Black really needed, in my opinion. This is called Congo. So for those that don't know what it does, when you play Congo, all of your opponent's Digimon that have a play cost of 7 or less cannot attack until the end of the opponent's turn, which is crazy. That means you can't get hybrided. That means none of their small guys can attack, so no chip damage. Strategies like Armor Rush get halted by this. And then on top of that, not only does it do that, not only is it an Ice Wall type effect, but your opponent cannot add cards to either player's security stack, which is super important. So one of the big plays that I was talking about where you might need to gain back memory if you're at 1 and then like say go to 6 is because let's say I'm playing against yellow, Mastamon specifically. I don't really want to swing my Oryukin for the first 3 checks just in case there's a degrade in there. So what I want to do is gain back that memory enough to be able to play Congo. Now Congo says I can't get degraded because the card cannot be put back into my security stack, and my opponent also can't recover cards, so they can't recover that turn. And on top of that, because of cards like Doragray, which you usually go into this and then this at some point in your turn, it can't be depleted and it can't be destroyed. So it can't be put in security, cannot be depleted, cannot be destroyed, and my opponent's small guys cannot attack me next turn, which is absolutely busted. It gives you an automatic win condition into Mastamon every single time if you just see this combo with this. So really powerful. Other decks that will be really good into for the format is going to be red-yellow security control. Imagine just turning off your opponent's Jet Sylphies or like swinging for 6 and then stuff like that. We have a good question from the chat. If you hit TK in security, they have to take a card and they cannot recover because you cannot add cards to your security stack. So another great reason to play this card. On top of that, its security effect is just activate the main effect. So let's say we're playing against a deck like Armor Rush, they swing, and then they hit Congo. They can't attack you. You can play Congo against like Blue Hybrid. You can let them, amass as many Tamers as they want. And as long as you play around, not getting lethal, or just hold this until you would get lethal. Then you play Congo, and you're like, okay, well, now you can't kill me, and I kill you on the crackback. So very powerful. Must play at least 2 of this card. There are times I even want 3, but I think 2 is like a right number right now. And the reason I'm playing 2 is because I'm teching in 1 copy of Breath of the Gods. This may be premature for the format. So the reason I'm playing Breath of the Gods is, 1, its security effect is actually really good, because if it's hidden security, it just says your opponent's Digimon can't attack players for the turn. And in an OTK format, where your opponent is trying to kill you, such as with Grandis, they do 3 checks and then they restand. But after that 3rd check, let's just say they hit Breath of the Gods in 1 of those 3 checks, they can't attack you again. So they literally just stuck with a very mediocre stack, and your stack always beats their stack. On top of that, let's say they do go through all 6 and then they hit Breath of the Gods. Well, then they can't, hybrid you for game. Same thing with the hybrid decks. But the real reason I'm playing this card is because decks like Imperial and blue decks and green decks are going to start adding cards like Megadeth in. And what Breath of the Gods allows you to do is do the same play like this that I was telling you guys about, where you can just gain memory to where you can play an option card and be safe. Now you play Breath of the Gods, you swing into a blue deck, and then Megadeth cannot stop you because this card cannot be bounced back to the hand or the deck. And then on their turn, you get reboot. So let's say you had that stack with the guy. For some reason you didn't kill them. We'll swing, right? We'll do a bunch of checks, and then on your turn, on their turn it reboots. Well, now this has blocker retaliation still. So I can't be bounced, I can't be destroyed by card effects, I can't be depleted, and I have a big blocker retaliation, and you're on Death's Door. So I think it's a really good inclusion. I really like it for the blue matchups and the armor rush matchups and things like that, because they're going to be incorporating things that bounce your cards. Paladin mode cannot bottom deck your card after you do this, so Paladin mode is not an answer. And I think it's really good and a really good inclusion. It just depends of whether we see a lot of the blue decks in the format. But for now, I think in early testing, it's been really, really good. So that's it for those option cards. From there, we play one last option card. This is called X Antibody, and you'll see this a lot in every X Antibody deck, and maybe including this one. I know a lot of people that do not play this in their X Antibody deck themselves, but this is really good in the Greymon X Antibody, the Metal Garuru X Antibody, pretty much every other X Antibody that is in this deck, and even then I think this card is really good in this deck. So what it allows it to do is, while you have a Digimon, pretty easy, requirement, you can play it without meeting its requirement, which would be a white card. In security, gain 1 memory, and then add this card to your hand. So it's a little Hammer Spark, which is cool. And then during your main, you can place this card under a Digimon without this card specifically in its source. The first time I read it, I thought it meant X Antibody, like the trait, but it actually just means itself. You can place it under something that doesn't have this card already in it, and then it gives it this inheritable. All turns, this card can't be stripped, so you can't get rid of this card under your source, and they can't get rid of this card under your source. So Blue Hybrid can never strip you down to 0 if you have this card under the source, which means just by having the stack, you always turn off Sora and Joe, and you always turn off Matt. The other reason this card's really good is because when attacking, this is the ESS effect, you can Digivolve into a Digimon by paying its Digivolution cost. So if you have Oryukenmon with in your hand, and then you have this and this, and you swing Alphamon, you can trigger X Antibody to Digivolve on the attack for this, pop their biggest Digimon, and then the attack will go through. It will be the end of your turn, and then you'll trigger this card's effect. Remember, you can't strip this card, but you can strip everything else around it, and then you pass back to your turn. So, really powerful card. I think it's really needed at 1 at least. There are a lot of times where I want to play at least 2, maybe 3 of it, but space won't allow it. So, I think 1 copy is really good. And the main reason why we don't want to play multiple is because it kind of breaks if you don't have the other pieces to go with it, and I'm not a big fan of playing cards that are only good in combination with other cards specifically. So 1 copy is fine. From there, we'll talk about the Tamers. Playing 4 copies of Cool Boy, and he is a very cool boy. He's a very, very cool boy. Uh, so on play, reveal the top 3 cards of our deck. Add a card with X antibody in its traits to your hand, and one spell with X antibody, or one option card with X antibody in its traits to your hand. So if you reveal Oryukin, X antibody, and Oryu off the top 3, you get to take both of these cards. Hence why I only play one of this as well. It's because it's searchable by 4 other cards. And then this is the really cool part of this card. So Cool Boy, on your turn, when you Digivolve into a Digimon with the same level, with X antibody its trait, you can tap this card, gain a memory, and draw a card. And you're probably wondering, like, why is that good? Well, a lot of your plays, unironically, revolve around these 2 cards, if you have Cool Boy out. So what this does is, you promote this, let's say you're at 0, for some reason, because you promote this Digivolves for 0, you get to discard a Digimon with X antibody and source, and then you gain a memory because you Digivolved, and then Cool Boy triggers because you Digivolved over this, gaining another memory and drawing another card. So if you have multiple Cool Boys, let's just say we had all 4 and we're at 0, we gain 5 memory and we draw 4 cards in that sequence, which allows us to push through the rest of our plays. Hence why we're playing 4. This combination is very powerful and it can catch you off guard if you're just not ready. Cool Boy is also uninteractable with cards like Chumon, Terriermon, Midoki, so it's very, very potent and helps you push a lot of your things, as well as being a consistency card, so it's a great starter to start off with. A 2-cost card that just searches for your pieces is phenomenal, and in combination with, Black Memory Boost, then you have 6 cards that search for your pieces. From there, we're playing 2 copies of Yuji. You would think we'd be playing more of this because the Bt9 version of the deck played more of it, but it's not as strong as you would think, right? Like, the promote and the draw only really happen, like, maybe twice in a game. So because of that, we're only doing the 2. Its actual best application is swinging and then attaching a source. So, I don't think I would play 0. You can even play 1 if you want to and fit something else in. But I think 2 is, like, a good number. If I find it not being as useful, I'll cut down the second one, just play 1. Or maybe just cut down on it completely and just go full force. But I think it's a really good card to have in the deck still. And then our last 3 cards are 3 copies of Coda, because it's a memory tamer that also searches as a card. So just from tamers / option cards, we have 9 of those on top of the, what is it? Probably other 8 that search as cards. And then the extra 2 that draw us cards outside of the Doraemon ESS. So all of these cards are starters, and they're phenomenal starters. You almost always get the pieces by like turn 3, turn 4. So with that, we have, looks like 17, no, we have 19 cards that just get us somewhere. And that's really good when almost about half of your deck is just a searcher or like an engine piece. But yeah, that's the deck. Like I said, there's nothing like too spicy. Maybe the Breath of the Gods in the early format is like out there, but that's what we expect to see from X Antibody, and it does a lot of really cool things. It, has really good matchups into the whole format. When you pop off, it's almost unbeatable. I don't think there's anything that can beat you if you're playing against the right deck and you know what cards you have to use, such as, yellow and you use Congo. I don't think they ever beat you. Or blue and you use Breath of the Gods. I also don't think they ever beat you. The only times you really lose are losing to yourself, where you don't find your pieces, or maybe you got rid of a card in your hand that you weren't supposed to. So it does take quite a bit of skill to be able to play the deck, and I think if you are willing to put in the time and, really practice with it, you'll do really well with it. So beside that, thank you guys for sitting through the YouTube video. I know this was a rather long one, but I'm really excited about this deck, and I really believe in the potential of it. Again, if you like the video, like the video, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitch with the rest of these people who want to play card games. Beside that, you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.